Today we're reading from Genesis, chapter 8, verses 1 to 14. You may not have read or thought about the flood story and Noah's Ark since you told it to your children, or since you yourself maybe played with a toy ark and animals. But it wasn't originally a children's story. It was a very grown-up one, a story with serious implications for us. So perhaps we should from time to time reflect on its inner meanings. It's one of the most ancient Old Testament traditional stories and preserved here in Genesis because it was valued so much. We don't always know exactly why these ancient stories were valued by our ancestors, but there are hints in the narratives that we can discover. If we spend all our energy worrying about whether the flood really happened or whether it was really across the whole world, well, that's a waste of energy. There are much more important aspects to consider. Flooding disasters happened then as now. More so then, I suppose, as flood defences were less developed. And of course, knowledge of the size of the world was very limited. So a worldwide flood would mean the known world, or from horizon to horizon, being covered in water. Other ancient civilizations had this story in various versions, but the Old Testament version is more developed and gives a much more prominent role and a much more positive role to God. The flood story is the culmination of a series of narratives starting with the creation. The theme was that all started well when it came from God, by whatever means and over whatever unimaginable period of time. That doesn't matter. It was good until human beings messed it up. And repeatedly, not just once, but generation after generation went wrong, messed up badly, until God is said to despair and wish he'd never started the whole project in the first place. Right, God says, time to start over. Let's make a fresh start, clean sweep, get rid of the lot, and let's just have a seed community for a new start. I wonder if you've ever felt like that about life. If things have gone so wrong that it's hard to see them ever coming right, or that everything is so confused and impossible to unravel, and you just think, if only I could say cut and wipe it all out and start afresh. Maybe we've all had that experience at one time or another in our lives, or all felt about the world that way perhaps. In this flood story, it's as if God is facing the same dilemma. And God could make that new clean start, whereas we can't really. But actually, at the end of the flood story, God promises to Noah with the rainbow that he will never flood the earth again. Of course, floods happen all the time somewhere in the world, but the point is that God promised not to intervene with the course of human history again, not to stop or control what was happening in the world, not to limit human evil. This is good and bad. It's good because it means our free will is genuine. It means our free will never be compromised. We are in charge of our destiny, collectively as a human race, as well as individuals. But it's bad, or not so good, because of the level of responsibility it gives us. If God will never step in, then how will we cope with that situation? The answer, of course, is we cope very badly. Despite all the messages from the prophets, people went wrong over and over again. Things got worse and worse. You know what it's like to watch the news or read the papers. Despair is not far away. But God had another trick up his sleeve, if I may put it that way, which was a special appeal and another kind of flood, if you like. God came in person to invite us to make that new start, to invite us to have the water of baptism poured over us, to be washed, to turn around in repentance and be given a fresh new beginning, a new birth, to be unravelled from the mess we've made and given a new life. That's the offer of the Christian gospel. And it goes right back to Noah and his flood. So if we thought it was just a nice story for children, think again. The only way the world will ever come right is through you and me, with God working through us. He will not tweak history and control the future. He will only invite us to follow him and live in his kingdom as the baptized, the washed, the flooded people of God.